This episode is brought to you by CarterComics.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your comic needs, whether it be graded or raw. Carter Comics has got it all. All you gotta do is go to CarterComics.com, fill your card up with all their amazing comics. Use the discount code FREAKNET, FREAKNET. Save you 10% at checkout. Not only on their website, but also at their eBay account. And the link to eBay can be found on their homepage at CarterComics.com. Again, CarterComics.com is your one-stop shop for all comic needs.
What's up, everybody? I am Travesty.
And I'm Cartoon Joe.
And welcome back to another episode of this freaking show. It is the weekly podcast with a little bit of something and a whole lot of nothing. If you guys tuned into our last episode, Cartoon Joe wasn't here. He was, I'm not sure what you're doing, but it don't matter. It's not
My internet was broken.
Internet was broken, yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Comcast, just assume.
T-Mobile, actually.
T-Mobile. T-Mobile, I hear, like, great things about. Like, I was actually listening to a commercial yesterday where I was like, maybe I'll switch to T-Mobile.
Most of the time, great. But you know what? I will say, in their defense, it was just the hardware that failed.
Oh, like
so I had to get
my
gateway. What's that?
A router or whatever?
Yeah. Whatever the wireless gateway. I think router is probably the right word, but they call it a gateway for some reason because everything's got to be special and unique.
Gotta be fancy. Yeah, different to them. Yeah. Is T-Mobile through cable? Is that what is it? Cable internet? So satellite or whatever?
Yep.
Okay. There's I can't remember what the hell it's called, but there's fiber internet being put in here in Peatone. I don't know the name of it. I think it's like a scientist's name, but it's like a dog mascot.
Nice.
I can't remember what.
I never heard of that, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I don't think the price is supposed to be better, but it's like a competitor with Comcast. Fiber internet. I can't find it.
Yeah, I'd love to switch over to that. Not gonna lie.
You would like to what?
I would love to switch over to a fiber optic cable internet. It's more reliable, but I don't want to go Comcast because it's so expensive.
Comcast for nothing. It is absolutely horrible.
The worst customer service I've ever gotten.
It begins with a P or something like that. Pavlov?
That would fit with the dog theme.
Pavlov. I'm loving it if anyone's listening to this right now. It's like, of course it's Pavlov, you fool. Pavlov Media. There we go. The future of internet is here. Yeah, it's Pavlov Media. Is there something called like Pavlov's dog or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
What is
that? He was the one who trained the response by he would ring a bell every time he fed them, and then eventually just by ringing the bell, their mouths would water. So, and they called it the Pavlovian response.
So is that their idea of like they want us to hear the word internet and we drool on ourselves, or?
I guess, yeah. Associate internet with their company, yeah.
I'm not quite sure how Peatone ended up being one of the places for the fiber optics being put in, but from looking at what Pavlov is compared to Comcast, it doesn't look like the prices are different. It just seems like it's a little bit quicker, but I don't know how internet really works. I know there's download speeds and upload speeds, and like when you test like the download speeds of like Comcast, like they seem to be within range of what they're supposed to be, but the upload speeds are like they really vary. And I guess the Pavlov, the download speeds and upload speeds are accurate to what they're supposed to be.
Oh, interesting.
But I think the one thing I did kind of notice too is like Pavlov only goes up to a certain megabytes per second, and I think Comcast has higher megabytes per second. So I don't know. I definitely. First off, I gotta get a hold of Comcast to cancel my cable. I don't know why I still have it. I don't really watch cable. The only reason I had it is because of baseball, and I don't really watch baseball too much at home anyways. So I gotta get rid of the cable because spending $250 a month and cable internet is absolutely insane, especially in this day and age when everything is going up in prices. So,
Right.
um, but I'm glad to see your internet's working and you got the right proper equipment. I don't know, technology. So usually when something goes wrong with me, I gotta get a hold of Colin. I'd be like, "Hey man, my internet's not working." He's like, "You check this." I'm like, "What is that?" It's goofy.
Yep. Yeah, I had to run over to the T-Mobile store and just get a new one, and it was fine. They didn't charge me for it.
Oh, there you go.
I'll take it.
And on Comcast, they charge me for one I never owned.
Right. Yeah. Well, and they'd fine you for breaking the one that you had or whatever.
Yeah.
And it'd be their fault that it broke. They'd be like, when the guy came and set it up, he actually like put a thing in there that would just break after 2 years or something.
Well, the problem that I had is that they were charging me monthly for a router that I didn't have. I bought my own router, and they were charging me monthly for one that they claimed they sent me that I never received. And when I would go back to them every few months, realizing it's still on the bill,
Yep.
it's like, oh yeah, we'll take that off. And they never did for like a long ass fucking time. And it's
Did they ever reimburse you for the time? Birds.
No, they never did. They never had a record of any of the calls I made about it. And Comcast is shady as fuck. It's and if they listen to this and they're like, well, I'll show you and cut off my internet. Oh well.
Concast.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll just hotspot podcasting until Pavlov is finished or whatever.
Nice.
But yeah, so last show Joe wasn't able to be on. I was able to talk with Fourth Mother Box.
Who the hell were they?
There.
You doing
It was
good?
cool. Yeah, they're doing a whole rebranding of their show, which is, I mean, it's a ballsy move for a show that's been around for almost 5 years. They're completely changing the name. I think they're changing the format just a little bit, tweaking it a little bit, trying to make it more. In my opinion, it sounds more marketable.
Sure.
Because
sure.
obviously, when you call a show the Fourth Mother Box, it sounds like it's kind of niche to DC Comics and stuff.
Right. If you even know what that is, if you're not like what you're doing, what with your mother's box?
Exactly. Right. That's what I thought at first. It's like, geez, and they make a lot of mother jokes. I'm like, that kind of makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. Tom talks about Kyle's mom a little bit too much.
Better to talk about your buddy's mom than your own.
Right. Yeah. This is in Alabama. So.
Yeah.
Shout out to our viewers in Alabama.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, from what they said, they called it, this is all on the show if you guys want to go back and watch it. If you haven't yet, they called it Fourth Mother Box because they were inspired by the director's cut of Justice League coming out. And I forgot that director's name.
Snyder.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder.
The Snyder Cut. Yeah, the Snyder Cuts. So that inspired them to put together a show, which they did. But they talk about Marvel, they talk about Metallica, they talk about current events and stuff like that. So they want to kind of expand that niche that they kind of created based on their name alone. I think they're going to kind of break things down into segments and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see the progression of the change or the evolution that they're going to go through. And despite of all the goofy things that's been said between each other, they are good people, and we were able to kind of start the beginning of several different stories, just never like Tom, never came to completion. So the hopes is to have them back on and kind of finish some of them stories, talking about their time as an indie band traveling around the Midwest. Tom and Nubby, the co-host from JFW, doing backyard wrestling together.
No way.
Something about a Frosty. Something happened with that. I still don't quite know what happened. Kyle's career as a therapist, psychologist. I'm not really quite sure. I know he has a degree. I don't think he can prescribe medication, so I think it's a psychiatrist. I think that's the only thing I know between. I think is a psychiatrist doesn't prescribe medicine, but a psychologist does, or is it the other way around?
I think so. I think that is how it is. I'm not 100% sure. I always confuse it too.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done therapy, but we talked about that a little bit. And then obviously they're loving Metallica and stuff like that. So we dove into a lot of different categories, a lot of different topics. We never actually finished the entire stories of them. So they're more than welcome to come back and maybe deep dive into like them here and there. So
Yeah, focus on just one.
exactly, and with them being part of Freaknet Studios, I mean the whole cross promotion and stuff is important to me as them and everyone else who's part of Freaknet Studios. The issues last time we spoke, we talked about the issues with the lovely intoxicated men and myself. Turns out that was one big fake out by Nubby and Gabagool. I still don't understand it. Stupid, but whatever. Gabagool's still an idiot, but it's fine. And there's a possibility that the Power Hour, who is another show on the Freaknet Studios, might be ending this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Powerless hour.
Yeah, Power Down Hour.
Yeah.
Dang, right? Yeah, so a lot of speculation on that. I'm not quite sure if it's 100% true or not. If it is, then JFW is going to look to find homes for the co-hosts who want to move forward on wrestling podcast. So, lot happened since we've had our consistent shows.
Yeah. I was thinking about it this week. I was like, man, it's been a really long time since we podcasted.
The weather doesn't allow for consistency.
Yeah.
You know, between either being sick,
yep,
technology
same on
issues.
my end.
Yeah, so it's just it sucks, and I know we always have the best interest of making it consistent. Sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Yep.
But we always come back. We're always here and everything, and I think I don't know what I don't look at weather farther than like the next day, but I know it's supposed to get into the 40s over this weekend, so I'm hoping the progression of warmth is coming, and you know that lullness that cold weather brings is kind of uplifted, and we can kind of move forward and get back to a continuous. The idea of interviewing people and stuff is still the hopes. I know I didn't talk, but I threw it out to kind of my Sophie once, like, hey, it's been a while, let's get you back on. And she said, hell yeah. I'll take forth the mother box and everything like that. So
nice.
We'll see. Yeah. Oh yeah. So it's pretty cool. Like I said, there's still an evolution here with this freaking show. So we're not going anywhere. We're not altering what we're doing. We've been doing the same thing for it'll be 10 years in November.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah, right there. We're gonna talk about some disappointing things though that's been happening in life. I kind of want to start. I don't know if I want it to be. I want to do something today that I'm either hoping is going to be like a next season segment, or maybe even on occasion segment that we do going forward.
All right.
I think we can start with that. That'd be fine. What I want to do is like I know like it was like a couple years back we did the I can't remember what happened, but I don't remember what we called it, like what freaking happened or
yeah,
freaking
like
history or something like that, where we picked like something that happened like this week in history. We talked about it. I want to kind of do something similar to that in a sense, but more so of I want to kind of pull like a current event or a tragedy or something that happened in history that may have been forgotten. Like I don't want, obviously I don't want to do like 9/11, Pearl Harbor.
Not recent history.
I don't want to do history that's widely talked about.
Oh, gotcha.
I want events. Yeah, I want to find those events that I mean, there are tragedies, there are moments that happen that impacted somebody's life somewhere at some point that is never really talked about or discussed. This one, I believe, is a little bit unique. I just saw it this morning, so I don't have every bit of information on it. I don't have every aspect of it. Work's never done. But I thought it was unique. I thought it was different, and I want to talk a little bit about what at least I thought. So I'm on Instagram. I'm watching like this video. It's this animated drama.
Sorry,
there was this animated dramatization of an incident that happened, oddly enough, on February 25th. So 3 days from us recording. I never heard of. From my understanding, as of January of this year, it's still ongoing, which is kind of weird to me. As far as court, it's still ongoing.
Okay.
Which it should be surprising because when I dive into the kind of the story, obviously a big business, they're able to kind of push court and trials and stuff for as long as they can, as long as they want, because they're hoping that eventually their side runs out of money or no longer cares or drops the settlement amount. Whatever. So I want to talk about 2022 Caribbean Diving Disaster.
All right.
So the Caribbean Diving Disaster was, and by the way, I'm reading this off of Wikipedia. So like I said, I just saw it this morning. I was like, this is something that needs to be brought up because people died, and I don't think this is ever really discussed or talked about, and I think it should be. The Caribbean Diving Disaster was an incident in February of 2022 in which a group of 5 divers worked the Paria Fuel Trading Company, working for the Paria Fuel Trading Company, were sucked into a pipeline from a hyperbaric chamber. One diver managed to crawl to safety and sought help but the other 4 were left to die, with no attempt being made to rescue them. An investigation by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, concluded that the deaths of the divers were due to gross and consequently criminal negligence, and made recommendations that charges be laid for corporate manslaughter. On the 25th of February in 2022, around 3 p.m., 5 divers became trapped in a Paria fuel trading company oil pipeline near Pointe Pierre while making repairs to the pipe. Unbeknownst to the divers, differential pressure had been created when the pipe was cleared of oil nearly a month earlier. While 4 of the divers were removing an inflatable plug, they got sucked into the vortex, pulling them into the oil pipeline. Despite efforts by the divers, only one of them was able to escape by crawling his way down the pipeline for around 3 hours. A GoPro camera was recovered from one of the deceased divers. Audio recordings from the camera shows that all 5 men were alive after being sucked into the pipeline. And in the audio, they are heard praying and comforting each other. So one of the things that were shown in the video was, again, it was an animated dramatization. So they were pulling product and stuff out of these pipelines with still water inside the line. So when they were being sucked in, they're going through these waves of the pipe. They ended up in a spot where there was an air pocket. Toxic air, because we're talking about water and oil being mixed. The guy at the front end, closest to the opening that got sucked in, was the only person able to kind of crawl back through. Now the problem is so when they were pulled in with their diving equipment, but everything they all ended up in the same place. The diving equipment was kind of sprawled throughout the length of the pipe, which is probably the saving grace for him and how he survived, because as he is crawling back, he has to submerge himself into the water, holding his breath and finding his way. So while he was crawling on his way back, he's obviously crawling down the pipe, reaching with his hands and everything, and ultimately grabs on to one of the air tanks. He's able to supply himself with fresh air. Crawling through, finds another one. Crawling through, finds another one. So ultimately, he gets back to the opening of the pipe. Now, the problem with that at that point was there was a straight drop down into the pipe and then the curvature. So he's at the bottom of this pipe, no way to climb up it. They don't have ladders and all that stuff. Yelling for help, screaming for help. Eventually, somebody finds him, pulls him out. He gets on deck, tells everyone, hey, they're down there. They need help. He falls into a coma. It doesn't say how long he was in the coma. Again, I don't have all the information. I just pulled up what I found this morning. Woke up begging for help again, and ultimately found out that while he was in the coma, the 4 people ended up dying. The divers who died, their names was Kazim Ali Jr., age 36, Yusuf Henry, age 31, Fazal Kurban, and Rishi Nagasar. If I pronounced those names wrong, I do apologize. Both of them were age 48, with the sole survivor being Christopher Boudram. As far as the investigation goes, Priya admitted that they had no rescue plan, citing that they had no legal responsibility to rescue the men. Further external attempts to save the men were reported, blocked by Priya, with arguments being made that the divers cannot be rescued safely. In November 2023, the Commission of Inquiry found that Pariah's P-A-R-I-A, I don't know if pariah, I'm guessing. Pariah's negligence could be characterized as gross negligence and consequently criminal. They recommend that the Director of Public Prosecutions consider charging Pariah with what is commonly known as corporate manslaughter. In September 2024, charges were filed against the manager of Pariah and Land and Marine Contracting Services Ltd., a company contracted by Pariah to repair the pipeline. Not noted here, and it was very brief in Wikipedia finding, but what was mentioned in the video was one of the biggest reasons that they didn't want to do that is because in order to rescue them, they'd have to disconnect that portion of the pipe and get them pulled out. The problem with that was it would decommission that pipeline temporarily, which would cause the flow of oil to be
God forbid.
But I thought it was kind of unique and odd that that happened. I know that there is actually a movie coming out. I think Billy Bob Thornton's in it, and it made me wonder if this has anything to do with that. I don't think it does, but it's just unique because Billy Bob Thornton's coming out with a movie related to all this diving. So at first I thought, well, it's kind of cool. Like maybe this is it. Obviously like the way that technology kind of pulls information from what you're doing and shows you relatable information, because I guess that's what the metaverse here does between Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. But it was just unique to me that like this was what was going on.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. It's crazy that this thing happened, and we're in a pretty decent time of anti-corporate news. I mean, there's a lot of independent people working to share stories like this, and it's surprising that it's taken almost 3 years to get out, to get to us.
No, exactly, and that's why. Like I'm sitting thinking, like this is stuff I want to do. Like I want us to be able to. I said it doesn't have to be a season long segment, or it doesn't have to be a weekly segment. But like something where like what happens to pop up, like, oh crap, I never heard of that. What happened back in 1997? Or oh crap, I never heard of that. What happened in 2012? Even if it was like this happened last year and was never brought to our attention, like the fact that, granted, as a disaster, 4 people dying isn't like, but it's still 4 people who passed away. It's still 4 family members lost and everything. I think they need to be acknowledged, regardless of how long ago it was or how small the casualty count was and everything. It's still something to be recognized. I think like you said, it's weird that it wasn't brought up. Because this is OSHA violations. This is oil pipeline issues. Like these are things that people bring to the surface,
right,
and say, hey, this shit's happening. And the fact that the only reason I heard about it was flipping through Instagram,
random like TikTok, right?
Yeah, so it's insane. So like I said, I don't have all the information because I just saw it this morning. I just wanted to kind of bring it to light.
Yeah, it reminds me of you've heard of the Ford Pinto.
I've heard of the car. Is there something?
Yeah, the car. So the Ford Pinto had an issue where every once in a while, if you crashed into the back of the car just right, the whole car would explode. Not like a big explosion, but like it would catch fire and stuff. And Ford did a cost-benefit analysis. The fix would have cost them $11 per car, and they believed that it would cost about $137 million to do all of the Ford Pintos that they'd sold and fix them all. They estimated that actually doing that, the amount that it would save society would be about $49.5 million. So it would cost more for them to fix it than it would give value to society for the number of people who would be injured. The analysis assumed that each death would be worth about $200,000, each serious burn injury would be about $67,000, and each burned vehicle would cost about $700 to repair. And the analysis assumed that 2,100 vehicles would be burned and 180 people would be seriously burned. And so they basically decided that it would be cheaper to pay out the settlements than to fix the fuel tank. And I don't know how it actually ended up. I don't know if it actually ended up being cheaper. But it's crazy that one of the Ford like C-suite members was like, yeah, it's cheaper to just pay the settlement when the car crashes. And that's what it feels like, right? And so the thing with these suits is you've got to, the government really has an obligation to make the companies pay so much money that they never want to do it again and no one else wants to risk it. But the government never does that because it's a revolving door between private industry and public jobs. So,
yeah, well, it's not comparable, but it reminds me of the issue with my vehicle, where it's like they know what the issue is. It's the turbos, that the cold weather and everything messes with them. But because it's an act of God, they won't fix it under warranty. You can fix it yourself. It's just gonna be several $1,000s.
right.
It's like, I'm sorry, you put this car together, you willingly sold it in a cold temperature climate,
Right.
realizing that there's a cold temperature issue. But
Yep.
because you're telling me, because God decides that today's gonna be -0, I got to drive on my way to work with my engine power being reduced, and I'm trying to accelerate up to 60 miles an hour on a busy highway.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
crazy.
And the fact that like there are Chevy dealerships that will sit there and say, well, we're hoping that there's a recall that comes up from time to time. Like, listen, I don't know how Chevy dealerships work. I know how Freightliner dealerships work. I worked in one, and maybe semis, the passion that Freightliner has for their vehicles is different than Chevy's passion for theirs. But Freightliner wouldn't even work with you, even if they were to come up to tell me, it's like, oh yeah, it costs $3,800 to fix this. Well, listen, if you cover 800 of it, we'll cover $3,000 of it. Then yeah, I'd probably end up doing it because like, well, hell, if I can
that'd be
spend
worth it.
yeah. But if I'm sitting here looking at like you want me to spend nearly $4,000 on repairing this when I bought the car for $20,000, you're telling me to pay a fifth of the value of my car at purchase price, not the value now after I drove it off the lot and all this jazz. But it's like you guys know this is a known problem, and when Freightliner has stuff like that, they cover that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what they called it, but like we would write it up as a dealership cost or a manufacturer cost or whatever it was, like, because they understand that, listen, there's an issue with the truck. The truck needs to go. They understand that these semis are the livelihood of these drivers. Well, without my car, I don't go to work.
Right.
But Chevy wants like, I'm sorry, it's an act of God. It's like, it's not an act of God. It's an act of poor manufacturing. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah.
But you guys don't want to work on that. You guys don't want to fix your flaw. You just want to say, it's not really damaging the vehicle. Just drive slower. The fact that I have to, from time to time, pull into my driveway, pull into work, disconnect my battery for a minute so I could reset the engine light so I could drive to work or home without the risk of a deceleration to my engine in the middle of a busy highway is insane.
Yeah, that's a serious. And like, and in your case, I mean, this is a local Chevy dealer to you, right? You probably know his kids and know him, and like, you wouldn't do anything. You're a good guy. You're not like a vengeful person. Petty, sure, but not vengeful.
Midwestern.
But yeah. But like, just imagine the wrong person has their kid die because of this issue. I don't know. There's a reason I don't live in small towns. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm a small town guy, I'm afraid of that. If I'm a small town guy, you know what? I'm going to cover the cost of that for you because you're my neighbor.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, and that
pisses me off. It makes me really angry.
Yeah. And that's what it is. And that's why I love, like, especially when it comes to like mom and pop shops and stuff like that. Like, people do look up. I mean, I've seen instances. I don't know the word.
Instances, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen examples. I don't know why I try to do the big words. I'm dumb. I've seen moments where, like, I'll be at the coffee shop, the diner, right here in town, and they, people are doing the pay forward thing. Let me buy that gentleman's eggs and coffee and stuff like that, or allowing people to cut in line because they got a couple less groceries and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would appreciate if the dealerships in town kind of looked after, other than the whole like, well, let me talk to my manager, let me see what I can get to you on this sale of the car. I mean, everyone does that, but yeah, it's just like, it's just like if the owners of these Chevy dealerships were to truly give a damn about the people who are buying these vehicles from them, we'd be like, you know what? Let's get this taken care of, and we'll go after Chevy for it.
Yeah.
You know, because you sold me the car. Like, this is your vehicle.
Right.
This whole issue that I have with this vehicle, and the expectation is maybe having it for a couple more years and dealing with it. Like I said, it is just a winter. You know, so I dealt with it last year, whatever. A couple more years to get rid of it. Hopefully, this is the last time I ever buy. First off, this is the last time I ever buy a 4-cylinder in this day and age, and this is the last time I'm ever buying a Chevy.
Yep.
I'm gonna go back to Dodge. I'm gonna hopefully be able to, you know, get like a new Hemi. Even though I love the gas mileage and stuff, I want my pickup truck back. I want even a V6. If I can find a decent V6 SUV, I'll be fine with it. Something roomy, something comfortable. Obviously, we're not gonna get it for the Iowa trip, but who knows? Maybe Ohio, maybe Kentucky. We get something that's a little more roomy, a little more comfortable because we got some road trips to do. Minnesota's gonna be a bitch. You know, it's gonna happen. But yeah, it's just I'm done with 4-cylinder Chevy cars, and I don't know if it's because to me it seems like it's an electronic issue, not so much mechanical. And I know without obviously looking up the information and everything, I know there were chip problems since the pandemic going into cars. Is it relatable? Right. I don't know because I haven't looked that far into it. Because once somebody tells me, we know what the issue is, we know it's happening consistently, but we can't cover it because God's causing the problems. I'm sorry, that's BS. You're copping out at that point. It's like God did not put this turbo issue into this Chevy Malibu.
Right, my car wasn't struck by lightning or a tree.
Right. Yeah, right.
You built a bad car and sold it to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I need to correct something I said. It wasn't Billy Bob Thornton. It's Woody Harrelson is in a movie. So gotcha. It's called Last Breath, and it is a biographical survivor thriller that is a featured film remake of a 2019 documentary about the 2012. What's it called? It relates to the story of a serious saturation diving accident in 2012 when divers Chris Lemons and his umbilical cable severed and became trapped around 100 meters under the sea without heat or light and with only the small amount of breathing gas in his backup tank. The documentary uses genuine footage and audio recordings at the time of the accident on the divers' radios and body cameras, supplemented with interviews of several of the individuals involved, as well as some reconstructed footage to tell the story of the accident.
Terrifying.
So that I'm not a big fan of the whole like thriller, but I mean, I'll watch this documentary. I don't know if I'll actually watch the movie. That's just horrifying sounding.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so 2022 Caribbean. So in 3 days, that's going to be a thing. That's going to be the 3-year anniversary of the incident, and it is still ongoing in court.
Wild.
A couple other things, and this is why I said before we start recording, it's kind of going to be more of a morbid show because there were some things I was like, oh crap, there's some other stuff I wanted to kind of bring up. Well, it's kind of also bumming and depressing stuff, but there's a friend of mine who I met through the Grand Theft Auto online role playing. They currently live in Kentucky, so I know you're listening. Hey, what's up? We got listeners for my role play. Who knew? People are interested. So yeah.
Nice.
I don't know why, because I'm just like here as I am there, just dumb and opinionated, but it's fine.
Good running a bar.
Right? Yeah. One of the people that I met in city live in Kentucky, and they're going through a lot of flooding issues that are down in Kentucky right now. I pulled up I think this is a local news, WSAZ3, down in Kentucky. They have an article that says Kentucky flooding death toll climbs up to 20. The death toll in Kentucky from last weekend's flooding has risen yet again. Governor Andy Beshear reported last Friday night that additional death in Pike County has pushed the state's death toll to 20 people. We need the federal government to step up and provide direct help to Kentuckians affected, the governor posted on social media. So I know like the conversations that I had with them. I talked about how like uh, they have a hard time driving through the roadways, obviously, and
Yeah.
they're I guess the blessing, which is we're going to talk about in the next article that popped up, is that at least they're staying in uh, above freezing. So I know that there was a moment when somebody said like you couldn't drive to Tennessee from Kentucky because of the flooding. So it's a little bit rough down there. So thoughts and prayers to people in Kentucky dealing with that. Hopefully that gets resolved soon and all the flooding's done. But what could make it worse is actually what happened in Detroit.
Oh, I heard about that. That was nuts.
Yeah, floods and frozen cars. There are photos that show the aftermath of a water main break that happened in I think a South Detroit neighborhood where water was rising to like mid-level of SUVs in the street, and because of the cold Midwest winter, froze solid right there. Residents in Detroit, Michigan, are dealing with the aftermath of a water main break that flooded homes earlier in the week. On Monday, a 54-inch steel transmission line built in the 1930s ruptured in the southwest part of the city, reported the Detroit Free Press, part of the New York USA Today network. Crew had to use inflatable boats to get through the knee-deep water, which is part aided to the rescue of about 200 people. On Tuesday, dozens of displaced households had to sleep in hotels overnight. Cars were found to be frozen and inoperable as of Wednesday. Crews were working through the ice. There's several cars on the street, and they are pretty much out of commission. Local resident Michael Muzzy told WXYZ this week. City officials said recovery efforts are underway. Mayor Mike Dugan confirms that water supply agencies, the Great Lakes Water Authority, and the Detroit Water and Sewage Department will cover damage expenses not covered by insurance, which that's amazing. But insurance should be covering this shit. That's why we have insurance. That's
Yep.
why my monthly monthly payment into insurance keeps going up because of this stuff.
Yep.
I still hate it. I still believe that insurance should be regional. I have no problem paying for flooding in the Midwest. I don't want to pay for hurricanes out in California or Florida and something. It's ridiculous that my insurance is going up because of that.
Yep.
Thoughts and prayers to everybody, but come on now. Like State Farm is ridiculous now, and the fact that I'm paying $170 a month for one vehicle for full coverage it's insane. No one will ever justify that to me. The Great Lakes Water Authority said on Wednesday that the restoration of the main transmission line could take an estimated 2 weeks. The Detroit Free Press has reported. So, if you get a chance, check out the photos. Obviously, they tore up an entire road to get to this line to repair it. So that's unfortunate, but the worst part of it is the previous photos where you see water freezing cars into the road. And it's just an unfortunate thing to happen. So listen, I don't want to compare this to anything biblical, but Joe, you know the Bible better than I do. Is there a situation that happened in the Bible where there was flooding and shit falling from the sky?
Yeah. Yes. Plenty of examples.
Okay, because another thing, I don't think we're going to dive into it today. We're going to be wrapping up the show in a minute, but there's been a lot of aviation issues occurring as well.
Although I need to read the article actually, but go on.
Which one? Yeah, so just a few of them that I know of. Obviously, there was a collision between the plane and helicopter over the river. I think it was in New Jersey or New York or something like that. And then obviously there was the other one where the plane.
Are you talking about the first one and then like the second one? Because there's been like 13.
So let's see, it was one on January 29th. I think it was the Bombardier CRJ 700 operating an American airline flight collided with the United States Army Sikorsky Black
that's like the
helicopter.
first one. Yeah.
At the attempting to land at Ronald Reagan and crashed into the Potomac River. None of the 64 people on board nor the 3 of the helicopters survived the collision. That's the one that I heard of. I know there's been more, but I've heard of that one. I also heard of the flight in Canada that landed, skidded, and flipped upside down.
Yeah.
So those are the
Toronto.
What are the ones you know of that I'm missing? I know there's plenty, but
yeah, so there have been mid-air collisions in Arizona and I think Omaha and no other ones are popping into mind. I was hoping that so I was reading an article this morning because somebody shared about it. That it's actually still very safe to fly. There were similar incidents over the last couple of years, even where so like they were much more frequent in the past than they are even right now. So this is from Axios. By the numbers, there have been 13 fatal U.S. aviation accidents so far in 2025. There were 31 such accidents in January and February in 2024, and 28 during those months in 2023, 33 in 2022, and 39 in 2021. So that the one that you started with the Black Hawk helicopter at Ronald Reagan Airport is the worst one in the last 16 years. Most of the time it's pretty small, it's a small private planes crashing, are a lot more common. But it's actually, I didn't even know that. It was, it's actually been a safer year overall, despite the enormous amount of focus on it that the media is giving.
Yeah, which is curious to me because, I mean, when you throw out numbers like 20 and so in January, 20 and so in February of last year alone, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the incident that happened in the Caribbean. It's not talked about,
Right.
And yeah, I would never discourage aerial flight, or I guess there's only type of one kind of flight, aerial transportation, flying, because it is the safest way to travel. Like the amount of planes in the air compared to the ones that are crashing, that it's nowhere compared to the amount of vehicles and the amount of accidents that are occurring. Right. But yeah, so if I look through this briefly, January 28th, Airbus A321 in South Korea caught fire shortly before takeoff. All 176 people on board evacuated safely, with only 7 suffering minor injuries. The one we talked about, the collision in the air in the Potomac River, 67 total people perished, that being the most devastating one. Learjet 55 crashed in Philadelphia, causing an explosion, setting multiple houses on fire. All 6 people on board of the aircraft were killed. 1 person on the ground was killed, and at least 24 people were injured. Cessna 208B Grand Caravan flying from Alaska, disappeared off the radar for about 10 minutes before its scheduled arrival at Nome. The wreckage of the aircraft was found 34 miles from Nome. About 10 people on board of the aircraft died.
Oh, that's right, Alaska. How did I forget Alaska?
February 17th, a Bombardier SRJ 900 from Delta crashed and overturned on the landing at Toronto Pearson International Airport. All 80 occupants were on board, survived the accident. 21 of them were injured. So those are the major ones that are listed here in front of me. But obviously there are other ones that occur. It's just like I said, they're not really as televised as they have been as of late.
Yeah, and I think it's mostly because that one was such a big shocker. 67 people died. That almost never happens. Yeah. And then not only that, it happened in Ronald Reagan Airport, which is one of the busiest airports in the world and very close to Washington, D.C. And it's a military flight training, military training flight. That's part of the issue. And it has the fact that, like, there's been a shortage of FAA flight traffic controllers for a long time. The last 4 years, the Biden administration was trying to fix it. They had hired like 1,800 people, and in the last couple of weeks, the Trump administration has fired a bunch of those people because of the stuff that Elon is doing with the Department of Government Efficiency or whatever. And so it becomes this much more salacious story because it has all these like extra moving parts that wouldn't normally be there. Because now you have, and then you also have, you get conspiracy theorists who are like, well, why were they practicing training exercises at the airport? Are they, this particular thing is the closest to the White House? Is this a continuity of government drill? Why are they preparing for a continuity of government drill? Why is there a new, are they planning for a nuclear strike to hit Washington, D.C.? We don't know. And it accelerates and accelerates and
How'd that go? How did that go?
Ah.
I like how it was like a little blend of Hank Hill and the professor from Simpsons.
Dang it, Bobby. Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, all that is to say, not only is Facebook still, or not Facebook, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, but not only is flight still the safest method of travel, it's actually safer this year overall than it has been in the last 4 years.
Yeah. I think it's just like you said, with the major accident being that collision between a plane and a military helicopter in a populated area. And let's not forget the Potomac is where Sully landed that plane. So right. I mean, it's a very famous area. I mean, like, so we're talking like it has to be talked about, but it shines a light on a moment. Like now, all these other things are happening. And maybe, I mean, I don't know about Canadian travel. I never traveled to Canada and all that stuff, and it is weird. And seeing the footage, I don't know if you ever did, of the plane flipping over on the runway.
No, I haven't seen.
It's insane. If you ever get a chance, definitely look it up. I mean, you just got to put Canadian plane flip or whatever. It's insane. And luckily they survived, because obviously when they hit the ground and they skidded, there was flames and smoke and stuff, and they end up upside down. And the fact that everybody walked away from that, except for 25% of them having injuries, but everyone survived. Yep. That's a miracle, because that thing could have. I mean, there's incidents. If you look back, there's footage of planes crashing at runways and exploding.
Right.
I don't know if the snow, the cold air was any factor in it whatsoever. I'm not quite sure. But it's something that happened. And again, like that's, I think maybe subconsciously, that's why, the Caribbean incident is something I wanted to talk about today, because of what's happening in Detroit, what's happening in Kentucky. Obviously, these aviation accidents, like these are things that are affecting people that we don't know personally, but they're, our fellow Americans or our fellow, people. They're human beings in this world that I don't think are being acknowledged like they should. So
well, it's I feel incredibly lucky in light of what happened in Detroit. I feel incredibly lucky this week, because we had a water main break in Skokie, which is just down the road from us.
Yeah.
And it didn't cause vehicles to freeze and for water to be, 3 feet high and frozen or whatever. And they had it repaired within a couple of days. That's cool for us. Sucks for Detroit, but like, it could have been us. It could have been us. It hits close to home when you go, oh man, that was a water main break. We just had one of those, and it didn't happen the same way. Thank goodness it didn't happen the same way.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things because it could. Any of these could be us. There could be flooding that could occur that could mess up, what we have, who we are, what we do on a daily basis. And yeah, it does start to happen in Detroit. It looks like, at least from what I can tell, again, maybe kind of like one of these, like, we'll recap it down the road on what's going on. It just says it's going to take a couple weeks, so maybe by next episode we'll see what's going on in Detroit. It's always a water issue with them. First Flint, now this. I don't understand it. But we'll try to figure out what's going on with them. I'm excited to see what happens with this Caribbean lawsuit and everything, because I think those who perished and even the survivor should get some restitution from it all. So, but yeah, going forward, I would like to do this. I would like to kind of like recap some things that people forget, that aren't brought up and everything. We kind of like just revisit it for a moment and just say, yeah, this freaking happened. Boom.
Yep.
So, Joe, what are you freaking thinking about that?
What am I freaking thinking about? It's actually been nice to be off the last couple of weeks. I mean, I've missed being here. But I've been working with my preschool at the church, and as a result, I've been getting sick because kids are little petri dishes, and I just don't, after basically 5 years of not really being around people thanks to COVID, I don't have the immune system that I had 5 years ago. So I'm catching every little bug, and it is driving me crazy. But I feel like I'm finally on the mend, and I'm getting excited to I think maybe I'm just going to start with walking, but I'm excited to go walk eventually when the weather gets a little nicer in a couple of days, and hopefully I'm fully recovered by then. I've been stir crazy. I've been getting stir crazier from not being able to from getting winded from walking up and down the stairs, or if I exert myself a little bit too much, I cough really hard for like 30-40 seconds, which is a long time to cough. So I'm excited to be getting better. I'm excited to take that getting better and extend it into maybe finally getting back on track with this year, which has just been a disaster so far, health-wise. What about you? What are you forgetting about?
Same, it's other than the Petri dish children, I'm in the same boat. I realized this past weekend, or not this past weekend, this past week on Wednesday, because my weigh-in, I do my weigh-ins weekly on Wednesdays, and regardless of the number, it's accountability, and I track it. We're looking at the middle of February into 2025, 6 weeks in, and the journey isn't where it needs to be. It's there was great progress at the 3-week mark, and then just got lazy. I fell back into bad habits, ordering my food instead of making food at home, instead of bringing food to work, just ordering Jimmy John's. Jimmy John's started toasting their subs, which
when?
About 3 weeks ago, when shit started going bad for me health wise. It's only on the favorite stuff, but listen, I love a toasted Italian sub.
Yeah,
that's my Achilles heel. But the thing is, I can do that at home.
Right.
I could easily toast my own sandwich at home. So the problem that I find that I'm having is I say all these plans, these ambitions of being better, doing this, doing that, and I'm not following through. So what I decided is I made a promise that I'm only going to order lunch on payday Fridays. Now, I'm gonna keep that, because I know if I get rid of that alone, it's gonna piss me off and I'm just gonna fail. But I did decide that going forward, I'm gonna eat everything in this house before I buy anything else.
Nice.
Because I keep buying crap and there's still crap sitting here. So the hope is to eat what I have, get rid of it, and then I can look at what do I need to restock, what I need to replenish, and stuff like that. So it is kind of like with you, like I need to start small, walking. I got an exercise bike. I could use this stuff, and I gotta start using this stuff. But it's kind of like, I guess 2025 starts today, or starts this weekend for me. It starts now, and hopefully get that goal, get that achievement, get more active, not get as winded as I do and everything, and hopefully get back into DDP yoga, because people still talk about it, still praise it. It's like, I know it works. I've seen the proof that it works. Unless everybody's lying, there's people talking about not only the health benefits, but the limberness, and there is the weight loss factor. So starting I found out, for me, as much as I love to try to work the morning workouts and stuff, it's just not for me. So I think what I'm going to do is, like, instead of doing, like, because week 1 is like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. For me, I'm going to do them the evenings before. So like Sunday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and stuff like that. But I want to go back to what we're doing. I'm going to keep myself accountable. So I'm going to make sure I reach out to you when I do these to make sure I'm doing them. So I praise a lot, especially when I did my journey journals, which I got to get back into doing that, because I didn't do that again. I always end it with accountability and progress. And I do believe that in order to have progress, you got to have accountability. And it sucks when I can sit there and preach this stuff to people, but I don't follow it myself. And I need to fix that. So
nice.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Every week our listeners catch Cartoon Joe here on this Freakin show. But just an hour of Cartoon Joe every week isn't enough for people. I know that. You know that. So if our listeners need more Cartoon Joe, where can they go?
If you need more Cartoon Joe, you can find me over at the Geekcast Live podcast at violentpress.com. You can also find us on Facebook, iTunes, Blue Sky, and Twitter by searching Geekcast Live.
Awesome. Guys, make sure you continue to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, just by searching This Freakin Show. Continue to listen to us wherever you pick up your audio podcast. We are everywhere. Just search This Freakin Show on any audio podcast platform. But if you want to watch our show, you can do so over at the Freaknet Studios YouTube channel That's where we drop the video version of our podcast, as well as the cemetery vlogs we do during the month of October, and any future videos that we plan on doing, like visiting certain places and trying certain foods, because I am still thick at heart and I enjoy eating. So, we gotta try some. We gotta find some small town diners. So that's what we gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, that's all I got. As always, I am Travis C.
I'm Cartoon Joe.
And thank you for listening to another episode of This Freakin' Show. I'm out.